A great sense of peace is settling on the Korean peninsula. The leaders of the two Koreas met for the first time in 11 years since 2007. And the entire world watched on as history was made on the Korean peninsula. The first summit between North Korea and the United States also was held this year. Chairman Kim Jong-un and President Donald Trump promised to open a new chapter in Pyongyang-Washington relations and establish a framework of peace on the Korean peninsula. Amid the warming tides, many pundits and observers have begun mulling over the two Koreas' future economic potential. These speculations have intensified after concrete details on inter-Korean economic cooperation emerged out of the third inter-Korean summit of 2018.
올해 안에 동서해선 철도와 도로 연결을 위한 착공식을 가질 것입니다. 환경이 조성되는 대로 개성공단과 금강산 관광 사업의 정상화도 이루어질 것입니다.
각계각층의 내환과 접촉, 다방면적인 대화와 협력, 다양한 교류를 활성화하여 민족 화해와 통일의 대화가 더는 거스를 수 없이 북남 삼천리에 영영히 흐르도록 하기 위한 구체적 방도도 협의하였습니다.
Falling tensions on the Korean peninsula have given rise to hopes of further cross-border economic cooperation. How can we now create a new paradigm of economic cooperation between the two Koreas? Significant progress has been made on forestry cooperation in particular, following the resumption of dialogue between the two Koreas. Gosung, located in the northernmost part of South Korea, the Korea Forest Service has been constructing a large-scale tree nursery in this location since 2016. Also, beginning in April of this year, it's been nurturing saplings that will eventually be replanted in North Korea. Owing to these advanced preparations, North Korea's reforestation projects were able to get off the ground in an expedient manner, following the Panmunjom Joint Declaration.
앞에 보이는 나무는 니기다소나무입니다. 이 나무는 북한의 아주 험악한 훼손 지형에서 잘 자랄 수 있는 생명력이 강한 대표적인 수종입니다. 우리나라의 산지 복구에도 가장 혁혁한 기여를 했던 사방 수종이기도 합니다.
The climate in Gosung is very similar to that of North Korea, making it easier for trees grown here to be replanted up north, so long as the conditions are right. North Korea is facing a serious problem of deforestation, with about 30% of its forests having disappeared as a result of the country's economic crisis and energy shortages. This also triggered floods in the country, which took at least 1,500 lives, and landslides have also been a frequent occurrence. South Korea has made advanced preparations to aid North Korea's reforestation project on humanitarian grounds. Deforestation in North Korea is a serious concern here as well, as it could affect ecosystems across the entire peninsula.
기후나 지형에 의한 피해는 어느 한 지점에만 국한돼서 국소적으로 작용하는 것이 아니라 일종의 나비 효과를 가지고 연동적으로 작용을 할 수밖에 없기 때문에 복원 가능한 시점에 지원을 해주는 것이 우리에게 미쳐지는 위해적인 요소도 사전에 예방할 수 있고, 그리고 나중에 남북한이 통일되었을 때 어쩔 수 없이 복구해야 되는 면적을 사전에 가능할 때 조금씩 줄여 나감으로써 향후 미래 세대의 통일 비용도 줄일 수 있는 단초가 될 수 있다고 생각합니다.
Inter-Korean economic cooperation, including road and rail connections, have also gained traction as talks over North Korea's denuclearization got underway following the inter-Korean summits as well as the North Korea-US summit. On November 30th, a train car carrying South Korean inspectors left Seoul and entered North Korea via Dorasan Station for a joint inter-Korean survey of North Korean railways on the Gyeonggi Line. The inspectors surveyed a 400-kilometer stretch of rail on the Gyeonggi Line in North Korea over a 6-day period before returning home to South Korea. A similar rail inspection was also conducted on North Korea's Eastern Donghae Line for the first time since partition. South Korean train cars travel 800 kilometers from Mount Kumgangsan to the Duman River, a significant milestone in many respects.
북한의 철도 상태는 경의선하고 거의 비슷하고 특히 이제 노반이라든가 지금 현재 궤도라든가 그다음에 교량 터널 그리고 시스템 분야 이렇게 좀 중점적으로 분야별로 잘 보고 왔습니다.
On December 26th, a groundbreaking ceremony on the joint inter-Korean rail and road project was held in Panmun Station, near the city of Kaesong in North Korea. With the two Koreas having taken the first step to reconnect and modernize their rail network, what changes can be expected in the coming years?
북한을 관통하는 그 인프라가 도로와 철도가 건설이 되면 단순히 남한과 북한을 연결하는 그런 게 아니라 우리 섬과 같이 고립되었던 한국 경제가 유라시아 대륙 그 엄청난 경제권과 육로로서 연결이 되는 그런 획기적인 전환, 지리경제학적인 전환을 의미한다고 생각이 되거든요. 예를 들자면 동남아시아나 일본의 관광객들이 배를 타고 목포항이나 부산항에 와서 숙박을 한 다음에 KTX로 갈아타고 서울과 평양을 거쳐서 베이징도 가고 모스크바도 가고 유럽도 가는 그런 날이 온다는 것이죠.
Every Thursday, a campaign is held at Seoul Station, featuring many banners and other pieces of artwork.
남북철도 연결 시민 여러분의 서명을 받겠습니다.
Once a week, a local citizens activist group promotes their campaign of creating a new rail network connecting South and North Korea. Their calls to restore the severed rail network of the only divided nation in the world draws the interest of many onlookers.
경원선하고 금강산선은 단선이라도 복원이 안 돼 있습니다. 끊어져 있습니다. 1인 1만 원, 100만 명이 참여하면 100억이잖아요. 그러면은 한 50km 정도를 깔 수가 있습니다.
Their aim is to gather railway ties that have been individually purchased and given by campaign supporters and donating them for the reconstruction of the Gyeongwon rail line.
평양 가서 냉면 먹어보고 싶어요.
왜요?
맛있다고 해가지고.
하루빨리 끊어진 남북의 철도를 연결해가지고 평화로운 세상이 빨리 오기를 기원하면서 제가 서명을 했습니다. 기차 타고 백두산 천지를 한번 가고 싶습니다.
우리 남북이 이어지면은 이게 전 세계 유럽까지 다 연결이 되는데 우리 얼마나 큰 일이에요 이게.
Will it be possible one day to board a train in Seoul and travel all the way to Berlin via Pyongyang and Moscow? Mr. Chung Yong-il, one of the many citizens leading this campaign to build a railway of peace, volunteered to act as our tour guide on the DMZ train. We traveled with him on the DMZ train and headed to Torasan station.
서울역에서 도라산역까지 가는 DMZ 열차는 하루에 한 대밖에 없습니다.
The special DMZ train takes riders all the way to Torasan station, the closest stop from North Korea. Its colorful interior contains messages of peace written by its passengers. An announcement is made to the passengers to fill out their entry application forms. These are a requirement for everyone traveling to Torasan station, as it lies in the demilitarized zone between South and North Korean territory. Following the Inter-Korean summit, public interest in this train service has peaked, which now sees more than 100 passengers a day, more than double compared to the previous daily ridership of 50. One can feel a growing sense of hope for a future inter-Korean rail link extending to the continents beyond as the train heads closer to North Korea.
이동 시간을 단축시킨다는 건 다시 말해서 생활권이 커지는 거고 경제권이 넓어지는 의미가 있지 않습니까? 마찬가지로 남북 간의 철도가 연결되면 유라시아 대륙 전체가 하나의 단일 시장을 형성하게 되는 것이죠. 그렇게 되면 남쪽의 산업 부분도 마찬가지고 북쪽도 역시 굉장한 성장 동력을 확보하게 되는 거라고 생각합니다.
After about an hour or so, the train arrived at Imjingang Station. Only after our identifications are checked by the military police is it allowed to resume travel towards Dorasan Station. The DMZ stretches across the landscape beyond the windows of the train. Barbed wire separating the two Koreas can be seen, as well as a rail bridge carrying the scars from the Korean War.
여기 이제 바로 지척이죠. 뒤에 보이는 게 이제 도라산 CIQ인데 저기서 개성까지는 뭐 한 30분 굉장히 가깝습니다.
Dorasan Station was constructed following the first Inter-Korean Summit in June 15, 2000, where the two Koreas agreed to restore the severed Gyeonggi rail line. It is connected to Imjingang Station in the south via a 4-kilometer-long railway that was built following the agreement. Back when the project first began, then-President Kim Dae-jung and many South Korean citizens donated railway ties for the construction of the new line, and physical traces of their aspiration for reunification still remain.
13,226명 그 이름이 새겨져 있는데 아마 이때 기종했던 분들이 여기 다시 오면 감회가 새롭겠죠.
55 kilometers away from Seoul and 205 kilometers still left to go to reach Pyongyang. When this railway is restored and North Korea's rail infrastructure is modernized, it could connect the peninsula to the greater Eurasia continent and create an economic windfall worth an estimated $125 billion over a 30-year period. During the April Inter-Korean Summit, President Moon Jae-in handed to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un a USB drive containing his blueprint for an all-new set of inter-Korean economic cooperation. The new economic blueprint outlines a comprehensive development plan that stretches all across the western and eastern coastlines of the Korean peninsula, as well as vicinities near the DMZ. The eastern coastal belt is an energy and resource hub that aims to revive the Mount Kumgangsan tourism project and connect the city of Busan to Russia and Europe, while the western coastal belt will be an industrial, logistical, and transportation center which will center around the Kaesong Industrial Complex and connect Pyongyang to Nampo and Shinichu. The DMZ belt is an environmental and tourism zone which will connect Mount Seoraksan to Mount Kumgangsan and Mount Paektusan under the theme of peace and biodiversity. The two Koreas could enjoy significant economic windfalls from cooperating closely with one another to realize this new economic blueprint. According to a study by the Korea Institute for International Economic Policy, cross-border economic cooperation in 7 key sectors could result in an economic windfall worth about $151 billion for South Korea and about $222 billion for North Korea over a 30-year period starting from 2018. However, some key challenges remain until inter-Korean economic cooperation can get underway in earnest.
완전한 비핵화와 함께 한반도에 평화가 정착되어야 본격적인 경제 협력이 이루어질 수 있습니다.
Although North Korea dismantled its nuclear testing facility at Punggye-ri in May as part of its denuclearization pledge outlined in the Panmunjom Agreement, it has been insufficient to quell lingering suspicions from the international community. This is due to North Korea's repeated history of agreeing to an exchange between economic aid and a nuclear freeze, only for Pyongyang to unilaterally back out of the deal to resume its nuclear developments.
북한 핵무가 좀 진전된다 하더라도 그 핵 문제라는 것이 또 하루아침에 해결할 수 있는 문제가 아니고 시간이 상당히 걸리는 일이고요. 그래서 남북 경협을 초기에는 어떤 그 제한적으로 추진할 수밖에 없고, 그래서 중장기적인 관점을 가지되 남북 경협은 현실적으로 점진적으로 추진될 수밖에 없고, 그래서 당장 뭐가 특별하게 크게 뭐가 변화될 거라고 기대하는 것은 조금 나중에 보면 실망할 수 있기 때문에 그런 기대는 조금 누그러뜨릴 필요가 있다는 생각합니다.
북한이 이제 비핵화를 선언하면서
체제 안전 보장하고 경제 발전에 대한 환경 마련 그리고 적절한 수준에서 지원을 사실 이제 바라고 있는 측면이 있어서 경제 협력은 비핵화를 촉진시키는 데 있어서도 중요한 수단이라고 할 수가 있거든요. 따라서 우리 경제 제재 하에서도 앞으로 북한이 비핵화를 성실하게 수행을 할 경우에 남북 경협을 통해서 북한 경제에 실질적으로 도움을 줄 수 있다라는 메시지를 보내는 게 아주 중요하다고 할 수 있습니다.
The Kaesong Industrial Complex is likely to be the focal point of inter-Korean economic cooperation if North Korea honors its denuclearization pledge and international sanctions on the country are lifted as a result. The Kaesong Industrial Complex, which was created in 2004 following a cross-border agreement, is a model of inter-Korean economic cooperation, merging South Korea's capital and technology with that of North Korea's cheap and abundant labor. The Kaesong Industrial Complex was an attractive investment destination for many South Korean firms. It was only 1 hour away from Seoul and labor costs were very low. North Korean workers were also very fast learners who quickly adapted to the technical skills they were taught. The economic effects was quite large throughout its operation. It began at about $15 million in 2005 and it surged to nearly $470 million in 2012. However, the industrial zone was never quite immune to the changing political climate between South and North Korea. In 2016, after North Korea conducted its 4th nuclear test and fired a number of ballistic missiles, the South Korean government announced that it would shut down the complex. North Korea responded by evicting all South Korean nationals from the industrial zone while seizing all assets. South Korean business owners were forced to leave all of their equipment and raw materials behind as a result.
그 당시에는 남북경협 사업에 대해서 정부가 국가적인 이익을 위해서 개입하는 것에 대한 어떤 제도적 근거가 없었습니다. 그러다 보니까 일종의 통치 행위와 같은 방식으로 개성공단에 개입을 해왔는데 그렇게 되니까 언제 어떻게 남북경협 사업에 대해서 정부가 개입할지 알 수 없는 상황이 된 거죠.
This firm, which used to manufacture undergarments in Kaesong, suffered losses worth more than $6.2 million as a result of the shutdown, and its total revenues, which used to hover around $8.9 million back in 2015, has now been halved.
이것이 근데 개성공단 폐쇄되고 나서 베트남에서 생산해가지고 온 제품이다. 개성에서 이제 저희가 생산할 때보다는 원가가 20에서 30% 정도가 더 지금 들어가는 상황입니다. 개성 같은 경우는 메이드 인 코리아였지만은 이러한 제품은 메이드 인 베트남, 소비자 인식이 당연히 다르겠죠.
Despite downsizing and opening new factories in Vietnam and Cambodia, this firm hasn't seen the kind of revenue growth it enjoyed while operating in Kaesong. The firm's CEO says appropriate legal and policy countermeasures are necessary.
그 기업들의 경영 정상을 위한 보장을 해주고 또 그게 안 됐을 때는 거기에 관한 피해를 배상해 줄 수 있는 또 보험적, 제도적, 금융적 조치가 필요한 거고요. 또 북에서도 쉽게 개성공단을 흔들지 못하게끔 미국이나 중국, 러시아, 일본의 기업들이 같이 가서 일을 한다면은 그런 일들을 많이 막을 수 있으리라고 봐요. 그래서 한두 개 개선하는 게 아니라 다방면 다각도에서 보완 작업이 절실합니다.
The blueprint for inter-Korean cooperation could expand greatly with the connection of rail and road networks, while keeping in mind lessons of shortcomings experienced in the past.
서울과 평양의 거리는 물리적으로 200km밖에 안 됩니다. 그러니까 이 거리는 뭐 1시간 미만으로 아주 자유롭게 왔다 갔다 할 수 있는 거리에 불과하거든요. 그래서 서울, 평양을 연결하는 광역경제권, 네트워크 경제권을 형성하게 되면 하나의 거대한 메가시티 리전으로 기능할 수도 있겠다 그런 생각도 들고요.
For example, the North Korean cities of Haeju and Kaesong could be connected to Incheon to create a logistics hub that connects the peninsula to Southeast Asia. Or the investments in the Pyongyang area could be encouraged to either build an automotive plant there or turn it into a model city to test self-driving cars.
한국에는 이미 이제 도시의 인프라스트럭처가 다 잘 갖춰져 있기 때문에 새로운 첨단 기술이 가능하더라도 기존 인프라스트럭처를 다 해체하거나 뜯어 고쳐야지만 새로운 기술을 적용할 수 있습니다. 북한의 경우에는 평양 일부를 제외하고는 거의 모든 이제 도시들의 인프라를 새롭게 구축해야 되는 그런 상황이고 경제 개발구라든지 신도시를 새로 만들어야 되는 상황이죠. 그렇다면 신기술을 아예 북한 같은 지역에 먼저 적용해 보는 것이 더 유리할 수 있겠다.
The people of South and North Korea are all taking keen interest in this new era of cross-border economic cooperation. Mr. Kang Min, who defected from North Korea some years ago and now works as a web designer, is one of them.
So they took the economy into their own hands.
He starred in a documentary film titled The Changmadang Generation. The Changmadang Generation refers to North Korean millennials who were born in the late 1990s, having had more exposure to foreign cultures as well as the experience of earning income on the black market.
이전 세대는 북한에서 배급을 줄 때 살아본 사람들이고요. 그러면서 고난의 행군을 거치면서 이제 장사를 시작했죠. 그랬는데 지금 세대는 아예 그 배급이 있을 때 그런 경험이 아예 없고 바로 이제 태어나서부터 한국 드라마나 중국 제품이나 그런 걸 소비하면서 그러니까 부모님들이 장사를 하면서 사는 거 어렸을 때부터 봐온 것 그런 것들이 다르죠.
Kang Min remains hard at work while harboring dreams of eventual reunification between the South and North. There are numerous things that he would like to do if and when inter-Korean economic cooperation picks up pace.
여행사를 하면은 진짜 좋은 아이템이 될 것 같아요. 대한민국 사람들을 상대로 한 여행사가 되거나 혹은 다른 전 세계 사람들을 위한 여행사. 북한의 숨은 관광지가 굉장히 많거든요. 또 다른 하나는 북한의 자원이 많잖아요. 그래서 그런 자원이 지금까지는 중국에 굉장히 헐값에 팔려나갔어요. 북한 실정 잘 모르잖아요. 북한 안에 인맥도 없고. 그래서 북한 실정을 잘 알면서도 그런 광산에 인맥이 있는 사람들이 하는 어떤 무역 그런 이제 자원을 중개해주는 어떤 그런 무역 중개업이 활성화될 것 같아요.
To ensure inter-Korean economic cooperation takes place smoothly, many pundits say efforts must be taken to bridge the gap in understanding between South and North Korean citizens. A team of researchers led by Professor Kim Byung-yeon from Seoul National University conducted a study on the differences between South and North Koreans on their perceptions of economic behavior. During the experiment, young South and North Koreans were each given about $89 and asked how much of the money they were willing to give to somebody for free without expecting anything in return. The South Korean participants said they would give $18, while the North Koreans said they would hand out $45 in comparison. The study shows that the redistribution of unearned income towards social contribution is around 20% in a capitalist society, while the North Koreans had an egalitarian mindset of equal sharing, which must take into consideration the different economic DNA that is built in among South and North Koreans. Human rights activist Park Seok-gil, who produced a documentary on the Changmadang generation, says young North Koreans possess immense potential.
I think one of the things that surprised me, and in fact constantly surprises me, is the creativity of young North Koreans inside the country. I know there's, of course, a lot of problems and a lot of challenges that North Korean people face, but some of the creative solutions and ideas that young North Koreans come up with in order to overcome that, it's pretty amazing a lot of the time. And I guess it shows something about the human spirit, that creativity, that ingenuity, it can't be suppressed completely. It can't be engineered out of society because it always exists within people.
Breaking the boundaries of prejudice and forging a mutual understanding of one another, inter-Korean dialogue based on the understanding and narrowing of cultural differences will be the key driver of successful cross-border economic cooperation. A new era of peace has begun, following dialogue at the 2018 Inter-Korean Summit as well as the North Korea-US Summit. Can inter-Korean economic cooperation, with the aim of overcoming the pain of division, create a new paradigm and provide a new growth engine for the economies of both Koreas?
민간 부분이 주체가 되는 경제협력, 그리고 정부는 최대한 제도적으로나 물리적으로 그걸 이제 뒷받침하는 데 초점을 맞추는 그렇게 역할을 분담하는 경제협력이 이제 바람직하다고 생각을 하는데요. 그렇게 하기 위해서는 민간 부분의 추진 역량이 강화돼야 됩니다. 북한을 더 잘 이해할 수 있어야 되고 남북 간의 협력이 가지고 있는 특징을 잘 이해를 해서 잘 준비가 돼야 북한 지역에 투자를 하고 북한 사람들하고 협력을 해나가는 과정에서 시행착오나 불필요한 갈등을 줄일 수 있는 거죠.
Inter-Korean economic cooperation is at the doorsteps of an all-new era. It is hoped that North Korea can achieve complete denuclearization in the near future and become a responsible member of the international community, on the way to providing fresh momentum for inter-Korean economic cooperation that could lead to lasting growth on the Korean Peninsula.